Reflections from Torch Trust, focusing on Christian faith and sight loss.
Hello and a warm welcome to Reflections, the show from Torch Trust that focuses on faith and disability in today's world. I'm your host, Marilyn Baker, and I'm delighted to have you with us this morning. On today's show, I'll be speaking with Emma Meade. Emma is blind. She was at school with me, actually, and she's here to tell us about her life, her faith, and a very scary incident she experienced, which ultimately showed her how wonderfully loving her community is. It's lovely to have you with us, Emma. She's got a very interesting story to tell. So I'm just going to ask you, do you have any sight yourself, Emma?
No, I haven't any at all. I was born nearly 2 months premature, and like many babies, was given oxygen
like me.
and given too much, like you.
Yes, like same as me. Yeah.
Yes, they even suggested to my mum that they could give me something so I could die quietly, and my mum wouldn't let them.
Goodness me, that's really dreadful. I mean, to think that they suggested that, because your life has been so full and so rich, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It has, yes.
So when did you sort of start your faith journey, really?
I always believed in God, and I don't know what it was that made me want to go to heaven, but something had stuck with me that if I was good, I would get there. And so I tried very hard to be good, keep all the rules. And it was as a result of joining a house group, so it was a meetings that would take place in people's houses, that I ended up doing a personal evangelism course. And we were given an exercise to do, what difference has it made to your life since you became a Christian? Because I thought I was one. And I was having a conversation with God one day because I wasn't happy, couldn't work out why I wasn't happy, why there was a kind of lack of peace in my life. And this conversation went something like, but I've been a good girl. And the answer, it was not a voice, but a very clear thought, but you haven't got Christ in your life. I'm a member of a house group, but you haven't got Christ in your life. And I had heard people say that, they asked Jesus Christ to come into their heart. And I thought, I used to think this is crazy. I don't need this. I believe in God. I go to things where I can read the Bible. But then on the 4th of February, 1979, in a little bedroom, and said, I believe that you can come into my life. Will you come in? Next day, I had this great feeling of peace. I'd done the right thing. Well, my life hasn't been the same, really, since.
Now, something quite scary happened to you not so long back. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, it was mid-April 2021. I had put some vegetables on, potatoes, brought them up to the boil. And then when I turned them down, still bubbling, as though they were still boiling. So I thought I will turn the hot plates off because I'd got a chicken thigh in the grill. I thought, well, it'll go quiet now. Well, it didn't go quiet. There was still this sort of bubbling. And then I thought, well, I'm sure I turned everything off. Put my hands up because the switches were above waist height. And all I met was heat.
From the switch?
Well, no, at the top of the cooker. It was above the hot plates.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Lord, what do I do? I did all the wrong things, opened windows, opened my balcony door, all the things you shouldn't do, because it hadn't clicked. It was a fire. Foolishly, I hadn't got smoke alarms because I'd got a carbon monoxide detector, which I thought was enough. So I wasn't aware of the smoke even. And then I suddenly thought, this is a matter for the fire brigade, but I'm going to get out first.
Well, we'll be hearing just what happened next from Emma a little bit later. But now it's time for our thought for the week. This week's thought is brought to us by Stephen Richards, who's been pondering everything to do with weddings. It's read to us by James Brookman.
With June upon us, we are well into the church wedding season. When we are asked to attend a church wedding, the invitation generally comes to us in one of three forms. These variations are like old-fashioned railway tickets. First class is when we are invited to attend the wedding ceremony, the reception meal, and the do in the evening. Second class is when we are welcomed to the wedding ceremony and the evening party. And third class is when more casual acquaintances are invited to attend the church service, should they feel inclined, but no RSVP is necessary. I want to challenge such a way of thinking. To be invited to attend a church wedding ceremony is a great privilege. When we are ushered to our seat in the church, we are not there simply as an impartial observer, nor an interested spectator, and certainly not to justify our place at the reception meal. No, we are there as a participant. We are present to bear witness to the lifelong covenant being entered into between two people by means of verbal promises. We are also witnesses to the fact that these promises have been declared not only publicly, but also in the presence of God. Lastly, we are there to worship God for who He is, to praise and thank Him for the institution of marriage, and to ask for His blessing upon the couple's life together. I imagine that some people attending church weddings cannot help asking themselves, in today's culture, is the content of the Christian church wedding ceremony realistic? After all, a recent report suggests that of children being born today, 50% will have experienced family breakdown by the time they are 16 years old. The Christian wedding ceremony is formulated in such a way as to assume that there will be a third in the marriage, God Himself. Marriage is God's idea. I am convinced that He wants to help us in our marriages. In the Bible, God enters into covenant relationship. We may legitimately read that term as marriage-like relationship with His people. I will be your God, and you will be my people, He says. The Christian gospel is that Jesus is issuing wedding invitations, calling us to become one of God's own people, and He marks it RSVP. This should not seem foreign to us, as much of it is referred to in the Christian marriage service. Using the illustration of wedding and marriage, Jesus is urging us to go the whole hog and get hitched to God. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. If we do, He then makes available to us His power to live in a way that pleases God, which includes help in fulfilling our own marriage vows.
Let's go back to Emma now, who was just starting to tell us about the house fire she experienced.
This is a matter for the fire brigade, but I'm going to get out first. So I grabbed the handbag I'd used that day. I had a mobile phone on charge and grabbed that.
Thank goodness you did.
And I was just opening the front door, and one of the neighbours was coming to get me out. As I was coming down, I could hear people saying, "Fire, fire, everybody out, everybody out." And then I went, I suppose it was a kind of like shock. And I said, have I killed anybody? Will they put me into a home? Will it be in the news? And people kept saying, it's not your fault. We'll get you a cup of tea. We'll get you cleaned up. Well, it was a good thing they never got me a cup of tea because I actually had smoke inhalation. So the ambulance came and they started doing all the necessary checks. By this time, because somebody had suggested, I called a friend from my church, and I chose her because in her working life she'd been a nurse. There were also, as well as the fire brigade, there were also police on the scene. And I heard this voice saying, "Hello, Emma, I'm Julie from Connections." Now, Connections is the women's group that operates in my church. I mean, that was no coincidence. So I believe, even at that moment, God was there. through that lady.
And did she take you back to her house?
They actually thought it would be a good thing if I went to our local hospital. They then treated the smoke inhalation, which I was expecting something to be poured down my throat, so I'd have to drink something. But in fact, they did it intravenously through my left arm by an injection. And I did have one small superficial burn on my right hand. In fact, there's only a tiny, tiny little mark that I think only I would notice because I can feel where it was.
So your flat was very damaged?
Very damaged, very damaged. Couldn't be lived in.
What about your possessions? I mean, did you lose a lot of stuff then?
Well, I lost just about everything. I had
What
only
a shock to your system. I mean,
I took it all reasonably calmly. You know, when my friend came and she said, "You look like Dick Van Dyke," because I was all black with the smoke. You know, Mary Poppins and the chimney sweeps. And she said to the fire brigade, well, she can come and stay with us. So I had somewhere to go.
So where did you go?
So I went to the home of the lady I had called. I hadn't had anything to eat, so we got home and they made a sandwich for me and a cold drink because I wasn't allowed to drink any hot drinks. They were wonderful and they helped me to deal with things like home and contents insurance because fortunately my home was insured and the contents, and I also had building insurance.
Thank goodness you did. Thank goodness those things were put in place.
Absolutely.
That was amazing. So did you have to be out of your house for some time then? Out of your
11 months.
That's a long time.
Yes, it was.
So you obviously hadn't got even clothes with you, had you?
Well, no. The first people who came to see me were the associate vicar, Ollie, and his wife, Lois. You know, they said, "We are your family and we want to help you." And we had a lovely time together praying. And as a result, I had 3 couples who acted as hosts for me. I had 3 homes over the space of 11 months. It would rotate in kind of 2 to 3 week basis. They were so wonderful. And the expertise that they had, the first ones who took me in, the husband, Graham, had just retired from working in quite a big company. So he was the one designated to talk to the freeholders of these flats. So he was negotiating with builders and this sort of thing. And then even when I wasn't with them, he would be keeping me up to speed as to what was going on and asking questions and so on.
What about kind of finances and money and things like that? You needed money to buy things?
Yes. When I met the loss adjusters for my home and contents, they gave me an emergency sum, which would cover things like clothes and things like that. A wonderful miracle was in the handbag that I grabbed up, there was my debit card, my passport, my blue badge, my bus pass. So I didn't have to get new ones of those. The only reason I had my passport in that bag was because I thought I would need to produce ID for when we were having our vaccines. That was wonderful.
And what about the church? Did they help you in any way? Because I remember you actually said that some people set up a fund for you or something.
Yes, I'm involved with 2 churches. There's a church in one of the villages about 5 miles away, Madingley, and I play the organ once a month in their church. And they set up a fund for me, and they said, you can use it for anything at all, and you don't need to tell us what you're using it for. And then I told you about Lois and Ollie. They set up this project called Love Emma.
That was the Holy Trinity Church.
Holy Trinity Church, yeah. And so there would be meetings that my 3 hosts would attend, and I would be there, and we would look at things. And you know, my hosts, they did everything. That they did my washing, they provided all my meals. And you know, at the end of each stay, I would offer housekeeping money, and they wouldn't take any. Apparently, I was a good guest. One of the hosts, Jeff and Elizabeth, they had this lovely dog, a Bernese mountain dog called Bobby, and their only worry was how he would get on with me. But within 24 hours, we were friends.
Oh, lovely.
He was a great comfort. We would have cuddles because in his own way, he was showing love.
Great.
As only dogs, when you know yourself.
And when you came back to the home, did you have any fears about a reoccurrence of anything?
I haven't started using my cooker yet. I'm actually using the combination microwave that you can get from the RNIB. A microwave, a grill and an oven. That may be a challenge the first time I use the cooker.
Do you think the whole experience has changed your perspective on, say, possessions or how you feel about life, really?
I think what it has done, because I think I should be honest and say that in some ways I might have contributed to the fire starting, because especially as I have been kind of neglectful in my tidiness. So now I am much more tidy.
It showed you that you were loved, didn't it? It showed you that you
It
mattered.
did. Yes, it did. It did very much so. So in that sense, I felt myself valued, and also I think because a lot of the things were presents, I want to look after them more.
I mean, it makes you value those things because they were given to you out of love. But your attitude has been amazing. I mean, you seem to be, to me, when I've chatted to you before as well, so thankful for everything.
Oh,
and
yes.
Although you must feel regrets, it's almost like you've accepted where you are now and you've appreciated the love of the church family. And really,
yes.
I think you've come to value the fact that you matter, and that's why you've got that greater self-respect now. You've got a deeper sense that
Yes.
your life is really important, and you're going to make the most of every day by the sound of it.
Yeah, yes.
Well, I must say, Emma, it's been a joy and an inspiration talking to you. We wish you all the very best, and we know that God is looking after you, and I'm sure that your story is going to inspire many to trust God even more. And there's a lovely verse in Philippians which talks about fixing our minds on things that are truly lovely and noble and beautiful and praiseworthy.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's exactly what you've done in this situation.
Remember, if you'd like to learn more about any of Torch's offerings for blind and partially sighted people, including our free Pathway audio Bible players, they're wonderful and they're free, remember, then do get in touch. The number to call is 01858 438 260. That's also the number where you can leave us comments, song requests or suggestions if you have an interesting story to share. Let us know. So that's 01858 438 260, or you can email info@torchtrust.org. So until next time, from me, Marilyn, and everyone on the Reflections team, goodbye and God bless.
You've been listening to Reflections from Torch Trust.